Just start recording.
So it's 6:15, so I get started. Before I turn it over to Mr. Brown, I just want to take everybody through a little bit of chapter business. We'll probably do a little bit more of some of the nomination and elections conversations. We'll probably take care of that after David's finished with his presentation. So the folks that are not members of the chapter can take off, or if you want to stick around, you're welcome to hear. We are at the end of our annual events. So next month we'll be holding an election to elect the officers for our chapter. We did put out on the website list of our board. So here we have Ivan, myself, Granger, David, and Michael. Ivan wasn't going to be able to make it tonight, but pretty much the rest of us are in the room. So if you have any questions for us, let us know. So we did put together a nomination committee. Hopefully everybody that's on the nomination committee knows who they are. Yes. And was reached out to let you know that the instructions that what we're going to do this year, so that since everybody that's in their position has recently, as of last year, taken into the position that they're in now, the nomination committee is going to nominate the existing members of the board, just to make it a little bit easier. And for anybody that is a member that is interested in taking on one of those roles, if you want to run, the nomination committee will be accepting, starting tonight, self-petitions. So if you're interested in taking on one of the positions of the board, all you need to do is get 5 signatures. We, according to the bylaws, we changed that last year from 10 to 5 so that it's a little bit easier. Now that the membership is kind of getting a lot of momentum, at some point we may reconsider that number. But for this go around, if you're interested in taking on a position, so we have a president position currently occupied by Ivan Gill, the vice president position, myself, membership chair, which is Granger Helvey, Michael Stapleton is our current treasurer, and David Brown is the current secretary. If you have any questions about what the positions entail, our bylaws, Granger has a copy of the bylaws. They're available in the back. We will be posting those onto the website so that they'll be available, but you will have to be a member of the chapter in order to take a look at the bylaws. So that each of the different positions is defined in the bylaws, and we did go through a review period last year. We made one change this year. It was a minor change. We changed the word corporation to chapter in the nomination committee. So, or in the self-nomination section. So if a person is interested in becoming a member of the board, you don't have to be a member of the corporation. You have to just be a member of the chapter. So the chapter is currently an LLC. So there are some difference of terms between chapter and corporation. So that was one of the changes that we did make to the bylaws. So if you're interested in becoming, if you want to challenge one of the existing board members, the easiest way to do that is to get a petition, say that I would like to run for whatever your position is, and get 5 members, regular or even student members, to sign the petition. And then we would need a bio, similar to what's out on the website, and a picture, so that everybody can kind of, if they don't know your name, they'll put a name to a picture. Now again, you have to be a regular member in order to be a board member. And I don't remember, do we have to be ISC squared? You don't have to hold a Do you have to hold?
To be an officer, you have to be.
You have to hold an ISC squared. Okay.
So you have to be a regular certified member. But voting is for the regular certified and regular members, non-ISC certified. Associate members do not have voting.
So, any questions about the nomination and who's running and how to get your name on the ballot if you want to run?
I plan to talk about that for those bylaws at the time.
Yeah, I think you were here when I said we'll probably do that after the important part of the meeting. Also, as part of the chapter, I want to mention, particularly, I don't know if some of our professional members have noticed, but we have a lot of student members, potential associate members that are joining us tonight. So we are in the final week, in fact, the final days of our chapter challenge right now. So the chapter challenge for those, and there's a lot, so I normally wouldn't go through this, but we got a lot of new faces. The chapter challenge is issued by the Center for Cyber Safety and Education, and they challenge each of the ISC Squared chapters to raise $750. Actually, $1,500. $750 goes back to the center, and $750 stays with the chapter. That $750 that they keep, they do a larger scholarship that they give out nationwide. The challenge for us is to raise that $1,500, and then whenever we raise over that $750, we can give to local students like yourselves that are upcoming freshmen or sophomores to college. So after the membership or after the challenge is done, which will be the end of this month, we'll decide based on how much we raise, how many scholarships we're going to offer. Last year we did 4. One was for $1,350, and then the other 3 were for $1,000. The center actually does a really good job of the application process. So if you are interested in receiving any of those scholarships, we will be putting out notices to how you would go about becoming a nominee or putting your name in the hat to receive those funds. Yes,
Is there a reason the application was scholarship?
it was supposed to open at the beginning of next month, but I think because we had an extension for fundraising, so we can reach our $7,500 goal, it'll probably get pushed out 1 month to December. So that will give from December. Who was on the committee last year? Ranger, were you on the committee last year? Which one? For the scholarship?
No, it wasn't.
I don't recall when I know we gave out we made the announcement in February, so I think it'll cut off at the beginning of January. So you probably only have a month this time because we got that extension.
If you're interested, I can tell you it was on the committee last year.
It's not necessary. I mean, all I'm really looking at is when if you have any questions about so we are accepted the challenge, but it's actually run through the Center for Cyber Safety and Education. So you can go out to iamcybersafe.org. Okay. And then go to scholarships and go down to ISC Squared chapter scholarship challenge. And all of the details are actually listed here. So it says that the application period will be from October 1st through November 31st. We may be able to request an extension for that if need be. And then we'll be announcing it to the recipients in December, and then we'll probably announce it in the chapter meeting either January or February publicly. So the recipients will know by December. Just a quick plug for the companies that have helped us with the chapter challenge. You'll notice on our website, we recognize them. So Lumos Networks and Northrop Grumman have both given to help us achieve our goal. So right now we are at $5,740 we've raised out of our $7,500 goal, so 77%. We're almost there. We need just under $2,000 to get to our goal. So if you have the means, please donate. If you have an organization that has marketing dollars or has can provide to nonprofit. So the center, the website that I just brought up, they are a nonprofit. So any donations are tax deductible. The EIN number is here at the bottom of our page. It's also available on their information as well. So all of their information is available on their site.
And there's instructions further up on there that talk to
Yeah,
companies
so we wanna go
donating.
through just real quick, and I won't bore everybody, but we are very close. We only have a few days. This is what it looks like when you go to give. There is a place right here where it says add special instructions to the seller. Put in there that it is for the ISC Squared Richmond Metro chapter, so that our chapter gets credit. And then fill out 1 through 7, and then hit donate now. It is through PayPal, so it's as safe as PayPal can be. We don't have any control over that. What was the third thing we wanted to talk about, Michael? We talked about the members, nomination, and scholarship. That's everything.
That was everything, yeah.
Any questions about anything I just brought up? I know I went through it kind of quickly. All right. Well, with that, since we are getting a little bit of a late start, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Brown here.
All right, good evening. Everybody get a handout? Everybody get one of those old-fashioned things that nobody knows what to do with anymore? Yeah, I'm old school, sorry. Yeah, if you need more, there's back in the back.
Computer 1.0.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be a number
So-
2 pencil though.
So tonight, we're going to talk about elephants. We're going to talk about elephants. There are currently about 500,000 elephants alive in the wild today. That number has fallen dramatically. They can reach up to 6 tons, and an adult elephant will eat 300 to 400 pounds of food per day. Even I'm impressed by that. What do you call a group of elephants? You know, what do you call a group of birds? A flock, right? And does anybody know what you call a group of monkeys?
Gaggle? I don't know.
So there's a really cute email floating around that says it's a congress of monkeys,
Ah.
and that's funny in a
Very
sense, sort of way.
appropriate.
But it's not really true. It's actually a troop of monkeys. Right? What do you call a group of dogs? A pack, right? And what do you call a group of elephants? A herd, exactly. And they definitely act and move in a herd mentality. Now, if you're going to train an elephant, there's some basic things you need. First and foremost, you need an elephant. And next, you need a pen or some way to control its movement. And finally, you need some tricks that you want it to perform, right? So what does this have to do with information security, you ask? Well, let's talk about something you might know something about, and we'll see if it relates to elephant training, all right? You all know the holy triad of information security, right? It's the initial CIA. What does CIA stand for?
Confidentiality,
Integrity and availability.
Ability, right. Okay, but that's not the one we're going to talk about. There's another triad that we talk about a lot. These are the things that we hope to do with our data. And now we have 3 tools in our toolkit. Who knows what those 3 are? It begins with people, processes, and technology. Okay, maybe not so well known. These are the 3 tools in our toolkit that enable us to protect our data. All right, so technology. This is what we deploy to keep bad actors out. Whether it's a firewall, IDS, facial recognition, the basic idea is to keep unauthorized people out of our data. Technology is also used to keep our employees in, to prevent them from going places where they shouldn't go. We have access controls, proxy servers, DLP, web filtering, they all work toward this. So we can say that technology is most like our pen. It controls what our elephant does, all right? Processes then are the tricks that we want our elephant to do. In this situation, do this. Don't do that. Follow this procedure. Our policies and procedures are designed to ensure that our data stays intact, has integrity, and only accomplishes what we want. So now that leaves people as our elephant. Now, don't be offended that I'm calling you and everybody that you work with, go to school with, as elephant. It's just a metaphor, right? But there's surprising similarities when we start to think about how to train or how to control your employees. Believe me when I say that people act and move in a herd mentality. Sociologists call this culture. And maybe you've heard the phrase cultural norms. It's everywhere. And it's an amazing force that we have to deal with. But fortunately, because you are an elephant, you are a cultural expert. You live, eat, breathe. This is just part of your life. You don't even have to think about it. You're so good at culture. And because of that, there's nothing that I need to teach you about culture. I'm just going to point some things out that maybe you've missed. All right, let me ask you this. How many of you, if you're on the professional side, how many of you came out of a technology background? Okay, and students, how many of you are studying a technology background, right? Yeah, everybody. All right. How many came out of a process or auditing background? Anybody? Okay, how many came out of a psychology or humanities background? Yeah, great. Okay, this is perfect. Okay, so now let me ask you this. Of those three tools in our toolkit, people, processes, and technology, how many would say that technology is absolutely the greatest risk to our organization? I have one person thinking about maybe raising his hand. Okay, how many think that processes are your biggest problem in information security? All right, how many people think that people are the biggest problem in it? Yeah, right. So everybody thinks that. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing that we all admit, we all clearly see that the big problem is people, and yet we keep hiring technology people to fix a people problem, right? All right, there we go. At DVHDS, where I work for the state, and we have 8,000 employees. How many of those 8,000 elephants have to click on a link to take my entire network down? Yeah, I don't care how many firewalls and IDSs I have or what my policies say about acceptable use. One single person decides to click on a link, I'm done. In the same way, if you have a 6-ton elephant in your backyard who decides he wants to eat the tree outside the fence, you may as well just start ordering a new fence right now, right? So what about policies? We spend hours and hours perfecting the tricks we want our elephants to perform. Can you think of a policy today that nobody in your organization follows because it's silly or outdated or conflicts with another policy? Are there policies in your organization that nobody even knows exists? I won't ask you to raise your hand. How can we expect our pet elephants to do the right tricks if we confuse them or never even bother to tell them what the trick is? Okay, so if we agree that the elephant is the most powerful and therefore most important tool in our arsenal, why don't we do more with the elephant side of our triad? We spend gazillions of dollars on technology. We spend hours and hours coming up with bigger and better, more complex tricks we'd like to see happen. But what about that elephant? Well, the bottom line, the bad news, the problem here is you can't control your elephant. It's way bigger than you and way stronger. You know this. Admit it. You can't control your significant other. You can't control yourself. Admit it. You can't control your children. You can't control your pets. You can't control a relationship because it's alive. People are alive. Elephants are alive, which means they're constantly changing. They say that you can't enter the same stream twice. Well, in the same way, you'll never meet the same elephant twice. And so, my friends, you cannot control security. You can control your technology, you can control your processes, but you cannot control your people. So if your cybersecurity solutions are eliminating or discounting or ignoring the human dimension, you're ignoring the most important part of your job. You are ignoring, here it is, you've been waiting for this, you knew I was going to say this, right? You're ignoring the elephant, say it with me, in the room.
You got to.
There you go. All right, Shimon Peres, if a problem has no solution, it may not be a problem, but a fact, not to be solved, but to be coped with over time. Now, Peres knew something about unsolvable problems in his 70 years of service in the Israeli government. Security is not a problem that you can solve. And the good news is this is job security for all of us. The bad news is it's going to make us want to pull all of our hair out and drink too many martinis. So why can't we control our elephants? Why can't we solve this? Well, it's because elephants aren't machines. We like to think of ourselves as supercomputers. The whole debate in AI is what's going to happen once a computer can process as much information as our brain can in a second. And we're almost there. Many people think that AI is going to take over the world. But living things are more complex than that. Elephants are not rational. I don't know if you've noticed, but neither are people. They don't always make sense. They don't always do what's in their own best interest. So if we apply what Perez said, people are not a problem to be solved, they're a fact, and it's a fact that we have to come to terms with. Why do elephants and people act the way that they do? Well, there's an internal force inside each of us that moves us in certain prescribed ways, and we call this force culture. It's that herd mentality. It's not something we think about and then decide to follow. We just do it. No thinking. Pre-rational. It's our intuition. It's our feeling, our deepest beliefs. It doesn't lie in our executive brain. It somehow lies much deeper, maybe even our hearts. So let's see if we can coax this unseen force out into the open. I need 4 volunteers. It involves handling cash, so you must be trustworthy about these chambers. 4 volunteers. We'll do it.
Come. Go. Yeah, right here. That's fine. All right. So, Kara, AB. All right. Tell us your name real quick.
Mohammed.
Mohammed? Perfect. All right. So you two will be together. You two will be together. So now the 2 people with the envelope, please pull out what's in the envelope, count it, and tell us how much money is there. How much do you have?
$19.
Okay. $19 each. Very good. All right. So now here are the 4 rules. This is the ultimatum game. Number 1, no talking amongst yourselves. Okay? No talking amongst yourselves. Number 2, you must share some money with your partner. Okay? You're holding the money. You must share some. I'm not going to tell you how much. You just have to share some of it. Okay? Number 3, no changing your mind. Once you hear what the other team has done, you don't change your mind. I'm going to trust you to make a decision. Stick with it. All right? And number 4, no help from the audience. All right? So, people with the money, make a decision. Oh, wait, I forgot one important rule. So, you'll choose how much to give. Your partner can either accept it, in which case you both walk out with the cash, or your partner can say, no, I decline. And all the cash comes back to me. Make sense? So, people with the cash, you have to choose how much to give. Then the receiver gets to decide whether the deal goes through or it all comes back to me. All right? Make sense? All right? Have you decided what you're going to do? You decided? Have you decided? Okay. All right. So what are you going to do? How much you give it? You give it 10 out of 19. All right? And what you're going to accept or you're going to decline? He accepts. All right. No changing your mind. How much you give it? How much did you give? $9. You accept or reject? Okay. So now tell us, why did you choose to give it $10?
Well, if I have 9, if there's 10, I would be more likely to spend money, and I would rather have some money.
Exactly. Right. How about you? Why did you just choose to give 9?
I don't want to do more than.
Right. Okay, good. Okay, thank you for looking on the hand. Thank you. Yeah. Lunch on me. So now, so did you see what happened there? All of them, well, not all of them, the 2 people with the money chose against their own best interest. Did you see that? There's only one logical thing for the person with the money to do. Okay, here's my assumption that having more money is better than having less money, okay? We agree on that assumption. There's only one logical thing for them to do. That's to give the smallest amount they can give, right? $1. But nobody ever gives $1. Why?
This other person may not accept it.
Yeah, because you would look like a cheapskate, right? You would look like a jerk, right? That's all culture. We don't think about, oh, my culture will look badly on me if I do this. You just know that instinctively. I need to do something better than $1, right? That is culture. There you go. Now, your high school had a culture, a way that people were expected to act. And there were several subcultures. You had your jocks, you had your cheerleaders, you had your theater folks, you had your geeks and your dorks and your losers. And the way each of those groups related to one another was their culture, right? You have a culture in your home.
Who is the ultimate decision maker in your home? How well do your children or your pets obey you? How do you handle conflict? All of that is culture, right? You and your significant other didn't probably sit down and decide what culture to have in your home. It just happened. Likewise, the jocks in your high school didn't get together and have a focus group on what kind of culture they wanted to live under, right? I don't know about you, but in my high school, if you'd have gone to the jocks and tried to get them to talk about culture, they would have beat you up. That was their culture, right? So culture is why social engineering works. Think about that. Culture is why social engineering works. So what do you do if you're entering a building and someone near you is also entering, they're carrying something really heavy? And culture tells you to hold the door open for them, right? Every morning when you walk into work or you walk into school, do you hold the door open for the person behind you? I mean, that's just normal decency, right? That's culture. You have a professionally dressed person comes up to your computer and says, hey, I'm with the IT department, I need to jump on your computer. Are you going to give them access? Culture says, yes, we should respect authority, we should give in, we should be nice. Someone calls you frantically crying, saying they need to reach someone in your office. There's been an emergency. Are you going to give them that person's number? You want to help? Culture says yes. You get an email saying you're late in completing your annual security training. You have 48 hours to get it done, or you're going to receive a write-up in your HR file. You're going to click the link. You get the idea. There's a culture where you go to school, where you work, and it weighs at least 6 tons. There are actually several elephants where you work. But the one we're going to focus on is the security culture. Just like there are 2 broad kinds of elephants in the world, the African and the Asian, there are several security cultures in your company and in your school. How do I know? Because Dr. Hayden, in his brilliant book, People-Centric Security, gives us 4 cultures to study. And better still, he gave us a test that will help us to measure what kind of security culture you live in. So I'm going to ask you to do that right now with that old-fashioned paper and pen. You turn to page 2. You're going to have a 10-question quiz. 10 questions. Let me tell you how to fill this out. It's going to give you a scenario, and it's going to give you 4 ways to respond. And you're going to put a number next to every response. Okay? And the 4 numbers you come up with have to add up to 10. Right? So if you think answer A is probably true 50% of the time, you put a 5. You can use fractions. If you want to put 2.5 on all of them because they're all possible, that's fine. Just your 4 numbers have to add up to 10. You can put a 0 on one, but just make the others add up to 10. Make sense? So all 10 of them have to add up to 10. Go. And I'm going to play some annoying music to keep you motivated. Oh, you didn't think it was over, did you?
It does keep going until everybody's done.
Telling you, it's torture.
Actually, be a suit to this music, guys.
Think about that. That's an oxymoron, right? Trust, security culture. But this can be seen in smaller companies, family-owned operations, and most specifically in certain departments of larger organizations. All right, number 4, lower right, is called the autonomy security culture. Think adaptive, flexible, agile, innovative. The cardinal directive is get results. The bottom line is the bottom line. I don't care how you get it done, just get it done. And classic examples would be social media companies, tech startups, academic institutions tend to be autonomous, their security culture. For the autonomy culture, an overly cautious approach can be just as deadly as a failure or a breach. You think about the innovations of tech companies. They're very, very concerned about getting out there quick and being the first to market, right? Social media companies want you to share any and all of your information, and only when something illegal happens do they stop and consider tightening security down. Now, again, no one may openly claim to have an autonomous security culture. Many organizations actually operate this way. If you, as a security officer, are seen as the Department of No, then you're talking to someone who thinks you ought to have a more autonomous security culture. A BYOD is a result of autonomous security thinking. Within your company, you're going to have a mix of all these cultures within your people. And it's the tension between these 4 cultures that fuels even additional security risk. Elephants are not the only creatures on earth that throw temper tantrums and burst out of their pens. Now, note the cultures on the left are internally motivated. The cultures on the right are externally motivated. Internal cultures rely on internal motivations. So on the negative side, we're talking about guilt. On the positive side, we're talking about pride, internal motivations. On the exterior side, the negative motivator is going to be shame, okay, public shame. The positive motivator would be then glory or fame. Now, with elephants in any one of these quadrants, you have a carrot and you have a stick. In our culture, we Americans, especially those of us in the security culture, tend to only deal with sticks. We have to stop and think strategically to even come up with a carrot to motivate someone. But you got to know that if all you ever give your elephant is a stick, you're going to have a sick elephant, right? So now that we have a basic understanding of these cultures, let's score your test. What kind of elephant do you have? So add up all the scores on your test, all the A's, add those together, all the A's, and put those in process. Add up all the A's and put that in process. That's your process score. Add up all the B's and put that in compliance. Add up all the C's, put it in autonomy, and D's go in trust. Okay, so we're going clockwise around. A for process, B for compliance, C for autonomy, and D for trust. Okay, add those scores up real quick.
Is G trust?
So clockwise, go A, B, C, D. All right, you got it? Who'd share? Tell us your 4 numbers, ABCs. Anybody?
27 for process, 37 for compliance, 19 for trust, and 17 for autonomy.
Okay, so you're pretty much here, you're more here, and much less on these 2, right? Who else? Somebody has something different. Yeah, Caleb.
27, 25, 24, 24.
Perfect, now perfect, right in the middle. There you go.
Because my culture doesn't, never mind.
Okay. Who else? Somebody different. Yeah, in the back.
70, 26, 0, and 4.
Wow, so 70 here, 0 here. Yeah, big difference. Anybody else? Somebody different?
I got 29, 22, 23, and 25.
Okay, so that's pretty round. Pretty round. So you can take your numbers then and put it in a cool radar chart like this. It gives you a graphical representation of where your organization is, right? Another cool thing you do is start having different departments fill these out and see where the departments line up. You know, if your IT department is really high in compliance and you know, your worker bees are really high in trust, you're gonna have some fights. You're gonna have some fights. So these cultures are competing. They're competing. So let me give you an example. Clara works as a developer for a software company. The company prides itself on producing quality software. It wants security built into all of its code. In their SDLC, they include security reviews, which give the company a peace of mind that reasonable measures are in place to ensure security. And what am I describing there? Describing a process culture, right? We have an SDLC, and we have security reviews. We follow the process, so we make quality merchandise, right? Quality code, right? But Clara's team is almost always short-staffed, and pressures are high to get things accomplished. Project deadlines are often brutal. Security is certainly not the only thing that is on Clara's mind. On time, on budget product delivery is part of the company's DNA. No one wants to be late on a deadline. If you blow a deadline at this company, management is in your face. Developers who miss deadlines tend not to survive long at this company. What is that? Describing an autonomy culture. It's a bottom line culture. This is get the job done. I don't care what it takes. Just get it done on time, right? So they claim to be a process, but what are they doing? Right? On one project, Clara is getting behind. She's feverishly looking for things to cut. What's the critical path? What can wait until later when things slow down? 10 days before her deadline, she realizes it's going to take her 2 weeks to finish her security reviews. Does she go tell her boss that the deadline will have to slip? In a true process culture, following the rules would be way more important to her manager than the deadline. But in this company, missing the deadline could mean the end of her career. Clara is caught between two opposing forces, process and autonomy. Now, the good news is, if she finishes on time, she gets a bonus. There's a carrot. Oh my gosh. Now, if you're an elephant and you have your choice between a stick and a carrot, which one are you going to choose? So Clara chooses. And chances are, nobody's going to notice. And guess what? She meets her deadline. Her boss thinks she's a rock star. She made her choice, and she's rewarded accordingly. Clara did exactly what the system trained and conditioned her to do. As the company continues to make these kinds of choices, they're slowly building that autonomy culture that values performance over process. Doesn't matter what they say, it matters what they do. But then an exploit happens. Clara gets blamed. Clara gets fired. And management decides there must be a problem in the process. And so the SDLC system fails. So out go the RFPs. We need new software to guide our process. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I've lived with this. Right?
You left out the reorg.
The what?
The reorg.
The reorg, yes, of course. Of course, another reorg, yes. Yes. All right.
At least a chart.
So what are you going to do with this information? Again, we have no hope of training our elephant if we don't know what kind of elephant we have. So remember, where are we at, Clara? Remember, you can't control your elephant. It's a fact. It's a fact that has to be coped with and managed. It has to be manipulated over time. We need to be social engineers for good. Over time, we gradually train our elephant. How? All right, step one, determine what kind of elephant you have. Use the test. Use the test. That will tell you exactly what kind of culture you're living in and how they view the culture, your different elephants. Step two, determine what kind of elephant culture you need. All right? So in Clara's case, management thought that they needed a process culture, but what they were living under, what they were creating was an autonomy culture. You need to stop and look at what's really important. Maybe they need to give up this whole idea of a process culture and just worry about getting things out faster. Maybe that's what the decision their business needs to make. That's a business decision. But you have to understand what kind of culture you need. Okay, it's going to be different for different companies. My company, DBHDS, is a medical agency with HIPAA compliance, right? So we have to be high in compliance. There's just no question about that. But other state agencies, other companies are going to have different priorities. You know, even within the state, maybe ABC will decide that autonomy is a little more important for them. Being able to move more alcohol, be able to rotate their stock faster, whatever, may trump some other concerns. That's just an example. At where I work, we have a data engineering department. This is brand new. They're coming in and they want access to all of our healthcare data, right? HIPAA schmippa, we want to see everything. And every week we get requests for these database people to become local admins on the machines. And so I swear, every week, running down the hall in my office, you'll hear one of our security engineers saying, yeah, competing values. Like it or not, culture comes down from the top. It's the people at the top that decide what actions get rewarded. And that's what makes the difference. So this has to be a conversation you have with upper management. All right, step 3, identify why your elephant acts the way it does. What are you actually rewarding? Your survey is going to give you clues to this, but you're going to have to, dig deeper and look and see what's actually getting rewarded. Just like with Clara, they say this following the process is real important, but that's not what they're rewarding, right? They gave you a bonus if you got it done on time, right? If you want to be a compliance culture that you put enormous pressure on people to work faster, you only reward speed, you're shooting yourself in the foot. The test will tell you what kind of culture you have. You'll need to investigate why this is so. What is actually being rewarded? Remember, the elephant will always choose the carrot. Always. Step 4, determine the things you can reward to do to reward the actions that you want. Okay? Determine what actions you actually want, then figure out how to reward it. Find out what your elephant likes for snacks. Find ways to catch them doing the right thing and reward them. Sticks are necessary at times, but carrots always work better. Knowledge does not change behavior. Knowledge alone does not change behavior. We all have encountered crazy psychiatrists, obese doctors, divorced marriage counselors. I mean, take a look at this physique. This is not because I don't know what healthy foods are, right? Knowledge by itself does not change behavior. Security training programs are great, but it's just more knowledge. That doesn't change behavior. If you want to change behavior, you have to reward new behavior. All right, step number 5, start the process of training your elephant. Remove the rewards you don't want from step 3. Start doing the better rewards from step 4. And this takes time. Nothing is going to change overnight. You cannot control your elephant. You cannot fix your elephant. You can only manage it over time. You have to continually go back and honestly look at what your organization is rewarding. For several months, you may do things to reward and promote empowering your employees. You have a big HR campaign. You hold meetings with your managers and tell them how important it is to delegate authority down as far as possible. Things are going along fine, but suddenly an empowered employee makes a big mistake and it ends up on the front page of the newspaper. How are you going to respond? It doesn't matter what you say your culture is. It only matters what you do. And that's why it takes time to change. So there you go. By the way, if you're in the market for a new elephant, they go for about $200,000. I think they're available on Amazon. But I can hear your thoughts. I can hear your thoughts. They're screaming at me right now. You're saying, well, that's all well and good, David. Maybe in a perfect world, we could work on our culture. But in my company, this kind of crap will never fly. Right? Well, brothers and sisters, you just made my point better than I ever could. I told you were culture experts. If you're thinking, this will never fly in my company, you're demonstrating in real time that Peter Drucker was right. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Your culture says that this kind of change will not be rewarded. Thank you for making my point. You're brilliant. Now that you know, now that we've pointed out the elephant in the room, the question is, what are you going to do with it? Will you continue to ignore the greatest risk your organization faces, or will you seek to cope with it, to deal with it, to manage it over time? Will you be a social engineer for good? Will you train your elephant? I already mentioned the one book by Dr. Hayden, People-Centric Security. I highly recommend it. Here's another book that was just fascinating, Elephant in Your Brain. from a psychologist point of view, the reasons why we do the things that we do. We lie to ourselves all the time about why we do the things we do. This book is very illuminating. I highly recommend it. All right, questions? Comments? Thank you for your attention. Thank you for putting up with this old school stuff. Yeah. Maybe?
Should have.
This one? Yeah. Questions, comments? Yeah.
Of the two tighter controls between the process and compliance, has either been better at having fewer security leaks, breaches, problems, or have you given thought to that? As far as the bottom line is either
Yeah.
seem to do better.
Right, no. So different industries, because of the business need, will gravitate, right? But there's weaknesses and strengths to every one of them. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And the biggest weakness, as we all admit it, is the human factor. And that's the one that's getting the least amount of attention. And because it's messy, it's not easy. It's not something you just plug in a new device and fix it.
Well, we see a lot of the same sort of stuff because the law of unintended consequences always comes off of getting what's rewarded rather than what's asked for.
Exactly. Yeah.
And just sort of thinking out loud, if you're looking for a strategy to try to make this sort of thing work, look at the costs of the reward versus the cost of what the technology to get the same sort of result might be.
And I don't know about your organizations, but in my organization, it's much easier to sell, getting funding for a new piece of equipment than it is some sort of an HR campaign where we try to train our people better, or motivate them, or get them rewards. That money comes much easier than this money.
Just say it's for technology.
Yeah.
Technology carrots.
Yeah.
Curious to hear from some of our younger members and visitors here today. As far as the classes that you're reading or recently been in, is the focus on the security more procedures and what tools and devices and things you need, or how much attention is given to the human side of it? Just curious what you're hearing in the courses currently. But they all put their hands up on people, so there must be some emphasis.
Well, most of what we study is how to secure different devices and stuff to ensure that it'll be from if somebody tries to hack or externally attack your server or your network, they don't have access to that. That's most of what we pay attention to, what we learn to do, and then we also learn about that and making sure that we don't make a mistake internally, but clicking on an email or something like that, or letting somebody in through the door. We talked about that. We all talked about how to resolve that issue as well.
Security both sides, technical and people.
People listen to something.
But then when I'm not like my actual school is much. I would say that my school is mostly a mix of autonomy and process. And it's obviously very different. But when we're actually at Mr. C, he does point out that the other members as well.
Cool. Yeah.
I had a question. I work in higher ed. How do you get out that security is more important when they feel that keeping the students in class having the technology, computers, the rest of them money on that as opposed to security software and appliances? How do you get them to realize that that is important just as well as keeping the students?
So are you asking how to get
How do you get that point across?
to administrator?
Yes.
So yeah, it would be an education process with them too, just like upper management. You'd have to convince them that this touchy-feely people stuff really is kind of important.
Yeah, but you're also in higher ed, you're dealing with, unfortunately, First Amendment, all that kind of stuff, where you can't necessarily censor certain things, especially for research purposes and things like that. So it is, I can see where it would be a much bigger challenge in an educational facility and making sure the idea might have that how they do it. But I can definitely see where I need to be able to use my paper, so I have access to this society. That all those bring in that fact right there.
Not the correct answer, so you could ask some hacker friends to hack your company's systems. Just saying, it works.
That is a good point. One of the answers is ounce of prevention versus a pound of cure. You want to be in the newspaper because your organization got successfully owned, or do you want to fight the battle internally that somebody can't get something they may need, and then on a case by case basis allow that. But it's kind of a trade-off. Gender, while maybe not the media approach, ethically, investors put into that. But you know, asking if they're willing to be on the front page of the newspaper because education is big on the circle, right? Students' information gets out there, that you've got a sensitive and protected.
You want to talk about the ounce of prevention versus the pound of cure. Look at the coverage Atlanta got because of the costs of their remediation of their recent ransomware attack. And most of the conclusions were it was about 6 times what it should have been because they had to get it done right then because they waited until the force was out and they were trying to close the barn door on the backside.
I don't know if this works in an educational setting, but in a corporate setting, it does not cost very much to hire a social engineer to come in, and they are always very successful. That's the easiest way to hack into a company. And so you have that, you document what happened and show how easy it was, and that convinces management that you need your frontline people trained. You need your frontline people thinking about this. All right, thank you very much for your attention.
So where